Gosh, it's Friday.
Yes,
I think it's actually Friday this time. But it's been a week. I think it's been a week. You've had a rough 24 hours, from just chatting on stream, and it's been a heavy week for me. So I think, like what you just mentioned, we'll keep today's show a little bit light. We got a couple announcements to talk about with Watsy, and then we'll just kind of veer around and chat. I think that'll be a good stream.
Yes.
We'll pick up the heavy coding on Monday when our brains are a little bit more recovered.
I was just thinking, like, where you were like, hey, it's Friday. I was like, yes. And then you were like, but it's actually Friday. I was like, oh, yeah, it's the first Friday of the week. You're right.
Time that I thought Monday was Friday.
Wasn't there like a time when it was a Friday? I feel like you've mixed that up at least like twice.
Yeah, I think there was a Friday that I thought was a Monday and a Monday that I thought was a Friday.
Yeah.
So far, yeah, that's for sure.
Yes. But before we like dive in, I wanted to show you something. I was just like tidying up. I got like a bunch of storage boxes in today, so I was like tidying up the closet. Like it's like off screen in the corner. There's like a built-in standalone closet, and I found this little keyboard that 40%? I got 5 years ago. Yeah, that's right. And I can't type on it, but I'm gonna give it another shot.
Oh, that is exciting. I love the retro. So I don't know if I don't know how old you are, but I think we're maybe around the same age. So I'm 34. I'll be 35 in October.
32 here.
32. So you're younger than I am. But I think mid 30s. I've just gone into this retro phase where I like wanted to do everything that I did when I was kind of like a teenager. Like, so I've started. I think I've showed this before.
Ooh.
So I got retro keycaps. This is the happy hacking keyboard. So I had to get sliders and do all sorts of shenanigans to get switch MX Cherry stems on here. But I wanted to like get a CRT monitor and like start playing old games that I used to play, like Diablo and Warcraft and StarCraft and Halo, and like get an old Xbox. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it feels like mid 30s. It's like, just take me back. Just take me.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, your camera is a little laggy for me today. Are you wired up?
It should be all good. Yeah.
Okay. Because 2 streams ago, you were on the Wi-Fi and that wasn't too great, and I wasn't sure. Maybe something's up again.
My lighting. How's my lighting?
I think your lighting looks great.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's okay on my end. I wonder.
Okay, might be me.
I'm all wired in. I've got a very backup that was good. So I lost power yesterday. I was all offline all day. So I've been dragging around. I disconnected everything and I was dragging around my battery backup to power fans around the house because it was hot. I've got a generator, so it wasn't too miserable.
Oh, nice. Yeah, how was that? How'd you make it through?
I actually enjoyed it. It's kind of like camping. Okay. When the power's out, you're like, okay, well, I literally can't do anything work related, so I'm just going to enjoy some peace and quiet.
That's nice. Or is it? Are your kids in school right now, or is it like a
no?
holiday?
They're all home. Yeah.
Okay.
So they were a little stir crazy with it, right? My son, he made up he's super into Legos. He's 9, and so he made up a Monopoly type Lego game. So he took out a couple slates, and like oh, this one, is like the slicer one, and so you lose parts of your Lego character if you land there, and if you get here, you get money or a gold bar, and you get to jail. And so he had a good time with that.
Oh, that's really fun. That's really cute. Yeah.
We've got a couple people joining in chat, viewing. So just a heads up, like today's session is going to be more conversational. So if there's questions you have, in the WebAssembly space, or the WASI space, WebAssembly system interface space, like feel free to dive them in. But we're keeping it pretty mellow today. We're just kind of just chatting. Yeah. We're having a just chatting section, as the Twitch streamers would say, right? I think that's one of the.
I believe so.
Topics. Yeah, it seems right.
Yes, that's right.
For see that 40% again. That looks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What's it called again? This is
the cat cam.
The core. You know what? That was like one of the reasons that I set up this camera. Like I keep calling it a cat cam, but also so I could like put stuff like on my desk and show it. So yeah, let's do that. And then hopefully it doesn't look too full of cat hair and like my desk looks presentable. Let's see whether that's the case. This should be the one. Here we go.
Glorious.
Yeah. It's a Vortex 40%. So there's no, if you compare it to this keyboard, for people like I know you like keyboards and you know keyboards. But yeah. Oh wait, it's mirrored. Hold on. I can unmirror it. That should be better, right? So it doesn't have the entire like top row that this one has. A full-size keyboard also has the F1, etc. Like row. This one's missing it, which is a 60%. And this one's like even further down, which is a 40%.
I love the double space bar.
Yeah. I believe you can like remap it to like different things too.
What would make sense, it would be a comfortable control key. You know, that left space.
Yes. However, I've discovered something that I think is really fun, which is called are you familiar with home row key mapping?
No.
Okay, you might like this. You might like this. Hold on. I'm gonna pull up a little article here because I have been oopsie. I actually need my keyboard to type now. It's home row key mapping.
You send a link to me. Well, you can share the screen. I can drop it in the chat.
I actually don't know. Home row modifiers? Home row modifiers, I think might be the thing. Yeah, here's the article. I'm gonna close this, then find where you are because you're somewhere hidden in my there you are. Okay, screen share, present, share screen, select window or screen, and then precondition IO. Oh, not this one. Hold on. Like you have no idea what's happening, but I'm juggling windows over here trying to figure out like how to like share something. This a guide to home row mods, which is fantastic. And I heard about this like last week, and it like took me away. Where what if, so you have a keyboard, right? And like your fingers are usually like ASDF or ASDF on the left hand side, HAKL like on the other side, and that's your neutral position. Now, when you're on a 40% keyboard, you don't have dedicated keys for like a number of things, right? Like there's no. So if I switch my cam again,
you don't even have the number row's gone, right? Like it starts with the W with the tab at the top.
So much is gone, actually. Yeah. Right. So here, if we look at it, then we do have like some extra keys here, but even these like could be gone. But we don't have a dedicated. We're missing a tab key. So tab here, there's no tab here, right? On the right hand side, there's no dedicated arrow keys. There's like a number of these symbols here missing. But the idea of like home row mods is a tap. So a tap on A would be the letter A. But if you hold A, it would be the same as holding, I believe, command in this case. Or if you hold S on the left-hand side, it's the same as like holding shift. And so the modifier keys exist on the home row.
Ooh, so you don't have to like travel down.
Mm-hmm.
So your shift could be like the holding of an A or S. Because how often do you hold down A to repeat A or So
correct.
It's making better use of that.
That's right. So you no longer it changes it. And you can like this article like goes into like detail. Here's the mapping typically. But then I believe the way you would do it is like you map it on both sides, and now your home row mods like work like that. And then there's like this ergonomic keyboard like mapping for like split keyboards that like does the same thing, but also integrates layers. It's like this entire rabbit hole. It's like fantastic. And so that has like inspired me to like, hey, you know what? If I can put these home row mods and like learn that, then maybe this 40% keyboard actually works well. and is even less strenuous, like going to the 60% I'm currently using.
Mhm.
So
That's what kept me with the Happy Hacking keyboard is the slight modifications. Because it is 60%, but it doesn't have the full. It's different than the ANSI layout because where the backspace is pinky away. And like if you even go to a 60% with a normal one, because it keeps the same as the 10 keyless, that's a really big stretch to hit.
yeah.
And it's same with escape and then the tilde. But that's still a stretch. So if you didn't even have to stretch at all, you could essentially
Mhm.
keep your hands within the home row.
Yeah.
That would greatly reduce stress and increase typing speed.
Yes, indeed. I know. I saw this and I was like, I bet Josh will like
Oh no, I
appreciate
love this.
this.
This is going to
Yeah.
be a whole new. So do you just use a remapper, and so this is kind of like a guide to think through how you would remap different things?
Yeah. I mean, there's two ways of doing this. In the hardware, or like I guess in the software of the hardware, or in the software of your computer.
Mhm.
Um, I I think for like my so I split between like my dedicated Mac OS like keyboard inside of my laptop, and like my I just plug it in and voila, that's my desktop setup. So I might like play around with this with a dedicated, like with just do it in software.
Gotcha. Like at the OS
Yeah.
level, because there's also a lot of people, like a lot of keyboards either have switches on the back, like this.
Mm.
Here, let me pull the case off.
Right.
So they have switches where they're kind of limited, dip switches
Mm.
there.
Yeah.
And then also like this one in particular has software for remapping itself, and it stores it on the board. But you're
Mm.
talking more like using software at the OS level to do the remappings.
Yeah, for now that is, because I could try and flash this one, but that would be like kind of difficult, I think. Or I don't know where to start.
Well,
So
and they're
yeah.
pretty limited. They don't let you do a lot of the fancy things,
Yeah,
at least from what I've
exactly.
seen. Yeah, especially the one like I was pretty disappointed with the glorious GMMK
Mm-hmm.
software.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't super great. The board was really nice, really high quality, but the software to remap just wasn't great.
Yeah. I found this other thing. So on the same topic, if I can share a little more.
Please do. This is a just chatting section, so anything's okay.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna screen share this again. Share screen here. Yes. This is something called a Miryoku layout, which someone on Mastodon like recommended, and because I was like, "Oh, check it out, home row key mapping," and they were like, "Oh, you're gonna love Miryoku." I was like, "What?" And this is for split keyboards. So
Mm-hmm.
it includes home row or home row mods. So it does the same thing, but then it does an additional sort of layering where you have your symbols on one side, and then you can switch between various things. So there's for example, here's the arrow key layout. So you like tap and you like go into arrow key mode where HKL is, and now it's just up, down, left, right. Or a different layer where you like modifier layer. There's there's symbols. Here's the numbers one, so you get a dedicated numpad on your left hand side. I don't know. It seems like it's like 5 layers, I believe, and it's like fully mapped in, and you can flash your actual like hardware with this. So there's dedicated keyboards with this, and there's like the suite here, the configurator, all that stuff. I don't know. I kind of
This
want to
feels
get
like
one of these.
the next level. It'd be
Yes.
relearning to type.
Yes. Exactly.
I've been debating it for a long time. There's a tech doofus actually. He's joined the streams a couple times.
Uh-huh.
He has this exact setup here.
Oh wow.
Yep. And so he talks about that a lot. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, how many hard things can I do at one time? I
Yeah.
love it. Like, I've really enjoyed it.
So to be like fully transparent, it's like I don't care about the productivity aspects of it. more than I care about like the fun of it, where I just think
Mhm.
this is so fun.
Yes, yes. Those are just a convenient side effect.
Oh yeah.
You know.
I've got this thing like in my home office. Like whenever like friends come over, they see my setup and they're like, "What are you doing?" Because there's a prompter here. There's multiple arms, cameras, monitors, speakers behind it, standing desk up and down, like a giant like you can't see it, but there's a lamp here. And so they're always like, "What is happening?" And I wanna enhance the spaceship further, where it's like split keyboard, trackball, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had a trackball for a while, the Logitech one, until I think my son lost. He popped out the trackball,
Oh
like part of
no.
it, and to this day I've not found it. So
Oh, that's so
it's
funny.
somewhere at my house, and I just didn't get a new one. I'd like to go back. Maybe I should probably. So the thing that I've struggled with, and this might be an ADHD type thing,
Uh-huh.
is to let myself actually have fun with things because I have this
Mhm.
tendency to just like just jump
Yeah.
right in, both feet, immerse myself, and then crank up the intensity to the highest level possible to, master it, so to speak. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
not really
yeah.
the point. The point is to kind of have fun and to keep learning and tinkering. That's why I keep. We were just talking about moving back to Windows because I need to do some recording, and I've been on Ubuntu for like the past 3 months. It's been working
Mhm.
really well, and then like how much I want to love WSL and how difficult it makes it for me to love it at times. Yeah, I've been running
Yeah.
into this issue with the Go Please updates. So it's tool package tool updater.
Mhm.
In whatever environment it starts VS Code in, it has the module environment variable off, and it just won't update the tools. I can run it manually, but that it's just an annoying thing to have to do when it should be a task that VS Code runs in the background. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
to
definitely.
the setup. Like I'm getting there too. I don't think I'm to your spaceship level yet, but I'm getting close. And I
Yeah.
think a Stream Deck type thing is going to be next, so I can do all sorts of fancy stuff.
Ooh. There's are you familiar with the Black Magic ones?
Mm-hmm.
So Elgato is typically like what,
Yeah.
it's the streamers brand. Like you need equipment, you go for that. Black Magic is like what the professionals use because
Okay.
like what is streaming if not a TV show? And like how
Fair.
do you produce a live TV show? Well, there's equipment manufacturers out there that have been like doing it for decades. And so Black Magic is one of those manufacturers, and they have this. If Elgato has like a little thing to like trigger scenes and stuff, is they have like these integrated like recorders that do the transcoding of like video streams for you that allow you to do scene switching, like predefined, that handle all of the composition like on device. And it's surprise like it's a little bit more expensive than Elgato things, but it's not prohibitively more expensive, which I think is interesting. At least the entry levels. I don't know. I don't know.
So
I
how
don't
many
know.
things to learn? That's fun though, because I wanted to level it up and just like when we do. So I played Halo a lot
Mhm.
growing up, and you can turn confetti on when you shoot the grunts. So like what I was
Oh
thinking
yeah,
is
yeah,
like how
yeah.
cool would it be to like say we get the code working or whatever in the stream to be able to hit that and then confetti shows up on the screen.
Right, right,
Like
right,
just
right,
little
right.
stuff like that would make it fun.
Yes. Yeah, that would be fun.
Or like if you
Okay.
get it integrated into VS Code to like when you run a test, it will like confetti on the screen kind of thing. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if like the easiest way to make that happen is using HTTP and webhooks or something. Where it's like make an HTTP request like this server, and there's like a thing running that you can like trigger things with. I don't
That's
know.
yeah, yeah. I think that originally came from like all the double kill, triple kill. Like, didn't that come from Unreal Tournament? What did that come from? The very first was it Unreal Tournament or
Quake, maybe? I
Quake?
wouldn't be
That's
surprised
yes,
if either.
Quake. Yeah, I think it was Quake. And then they changed
Okay.
the voice with every iteration slightly
Oh
in the
yeah.
Halo series. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Have you seen the videos of the Halo guy like doing voiceovers? The
I
voice
don't think
actor?
so. Uh-uh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's on like what is it, TikTok somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 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 where he's like just the Halo voice guy, and he'll be like, just saying goofy things in the Halo voice.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's fix it. Halo voice over Jeffrey Stitzer.
Sounds possible.
Interesting. That reminds me of a guy that I've been watching on YouTube. He's an older gentleman, retired, I think, Marine, like maybe fine Vietnam or something like that. But he's got to be like 70 something, 70 plus, and he's just like wrecking people on Battlefield.
It's really funny.
Yeah, I love it.
Isn't his like handle Gamer Grandpa?
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah, that is funny.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah, I can show you some WebAssembly stuff.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep. I'm having a very like, it's Friday. My head is like empty. Like we're both like, yeah, that was nice. But yeah,
it's a good little tangent.
Great.
Check out some stuff.
A little bit more on topic too is or on topic, like I mean, we're just like chatting away. But I'm still like, trying to. So I was okay. I've got a question for you.
Okay.
I was looking at okay, how to explain this? So bill of materials, right? There is I saw a blog post by a company called Fair Systems. They're friends in Berlin. I know them. I used to live there. I used to hang out with them. But they've been doing like this. They've been helping out with this project called Cargo Cyclone DX, which uses
that's the format for SBOMs.
Exactly. It allows you to, it's a cargo command. You can point it at your repo and it'll like reference multiple things to generate a bill of materials. It'll be like, hey, what code are you using? Where did it come from? Here you go. Separately from that, I believe NPM and GitHub can now do a handshake of sorts, where if you have a publish action on GitHub, you can sign it. Like the source can be signed as you do the publish. And then on NPM, it says, hey, this code that was published was sourced from this repo and that was signed. And we know this for a fact because, we did a OpenID exchange or whatever. Anyway, it creates what's the word for that? Like not a root of trust, but like a custody chain.
A providence.
Provenance. Yeah, that's right.
I think I'm saying it wrong. Providence, but provenance. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Providence, Rhode Island is no? Okay. But like it allows you to do that and be like, hey, this code came from here. Here's I've signed the thing to make sure it's a thing. And then once you download it, you get the signatures with, and presumably once you then build your code using npm, or it's not really building, but once you pull it in and make it part of your artifact, you can include those signatures and supposedly also sign your artifact. So you get a tree of signatures of like, I got my code from here, this code came from there, and like all the dependencies, and then you build up a big thing, and so you know where your stuff came from. Like nobody's giving more guarantees of like, hey, my code is like perfect, but at least nobody's like tampered in between.
Yeah, at least you know where it came from.
Yeah. And so what I'm seeing here is like two modes. One where you include a bunch of signatures, and that seems useful. But then the other, which is like, here's just a bill of materials, and it's like kind of like a best effort sort of thing that doesn't include signatures, but just says like, hey, here's what's in here. And I know you've been working on Notary and the related tooling and like in the OCI space, because whenever people talk about like including bombs, all these signature things, they're it bottoms out in like images. And so I was kind of like curious, like, what's the story here? What do you think we should do? Like, if we don't include signatures, like, do we have options? Like, can we do a gradual sort of path here for components potentially? I don't know.
Good question. I mean, a lot of this tool, a lot. So the story currently is like we need to do something about supply chain attacks, and so we
Yeah.
need to create some kind of process and tooling around the infrastructure to prevent that. And so that's where the signature, like notation, is a digital signing tool. So it has a number of different signature formats that it supports. And cosign would
Right.
be another example of that. And so these are kind of like reactive or retro, like after the fact, where okay, we had these artifacts, and now we need to find some way of like this is the thing that I say it is, and it hasn't been tampered with.
Mhm.
And that's where with a lot of what I've been working as a container space. So, but I think there's a lot
Mhm.
of parallels, so it'll be useful.
Yeah.
And so the way that it works now is they're still working on that beginning story.
Mhm.
But right now, typically what people are doing is like, okay, well, I'm pulling all this stuff in and I've got like scanners and stuff like that for my dependencies. So I'm just going to take, maybe I have this energy, I'm going to pull it into my internal, repository so I can pull from there. And I'm only going to pull in stuff that I trust. And so there's kind
Yeah.
of like an assumed trust there for as far as like everything that the application depends on that it's building upon, like libraries and so forth. And then what happens is like, okay, well, all of this is going to be containerized and it's going to be put in a container. And I'm going to use notation or cosign to sign that particular artifact, and then verify on that thing. So the SBOM story is still like working out right now. It's really what you said. It's like here's everything I think is included in here, and it's kind of a best effort. I haven't seen any where it's missing is like the teeth. Like, okay, well, what happens when there's something that you don't agree with in there? There's no tooling on the other side to reject it or anything, and so it's less useful at this point from what I've been tinkering with. So that's kind of like this. The state of it now is like we need some way to say that this thing, I built this thing, and then here's this particular signature. If it doesn't match this, then it's been messed with, and you shouldn't use it.
Right.
And so that's why you sign the digest instead of the mana, or you sign the digest of a container image and not the name or the tag, because the tag could change; it's mutable.
And
But
the,
then the
di-
signature
the
would need change. Yeah.
and the digest is a hash of the content, right?
Yes, hash of the content. So
Okay.
then if the content changed in any way, the hash won't match. And
Okay.
so therefore you can have some kind of trust in there,
Right.
that the signature is valid. But the tag wouldn't change it. You could sign the same tag over and over, even if
Okay.
it changed because they're mutable. You can overwrite a Docker tag like v1 many times. Um,
Right.
so that's kind of like where it is now. Where it could be useful in components, it would be super nice if the tooling had a way, just when you're building it, that it also signs. Because that's what's happening now is they're adding another step for notation
Mhm.
into it. Um, and really all that is like generating a digital signature and then storing it somewhere
Mhm.
in some kind of metadata. So like it
Mm.
doesn't have to. Right now, notation uses the OCI, so because it assumes that there's a container on there. But in my mind, it always was a little backwards because okay, well, why wouldn't I just sign it at build time? Like, why does it have to? Why does it need to be in a registry before I can put metadata on it to sign it?
Yeah.
So if we could find a way in the component world to have a signature in the metadata of the component
Mhm.
that then other tools could validate, I think that would be a good step forward.
Okay. Okay. So I didn't fully capture, I guess, the what you were saying, or I didn't fully catch what you were saying about bombs, like build materials. Because like
Oh, sure.
I now understand what you mean by here's why signature is useful. It makes sure that nobody's tampered with this thing. But then that is still a separate thing from like, here's our best effort to like sort of figure out what went into it. So I don't know. Uh,
So the
yeah.
SBOM, yeah, to dive in more on that, it gets tricky because when you're dealing with the code, it's how many SBOMs are you going to have and what are those SBOMs going to hold? Because there's various different things. So if you're way down at the code level, you've got your library package dependencies, but then say that you move that into container. Well, the container has a whole set of different things being pulled in.
Yeah.
Its base layer, whatever intermediary like multi-stage builds that you're doing, whatever you're doing in your Docker file. So that's like another
Yeah.
set of things that you're doing. Like if it was a VM, it'd be like what software's installed, what patches do you have, like what's the state of all that good stuff. Hard to figure out. And so then the question becomes, is this all kind of in the end one giant SBOM with sections,
Yes.
or do we mostly care about the code itself and like where these dependencies came from? And so there isn't a really good consensus. So
Okay.
it's less defined, that process, and what's useful is they're still trying to figure that out. Like, yes, we can generate an
Oh, okay.
SBOM and it goes through all the packages and finds the source and all that good stuff. But then at the other end, when it's deployed, like what do we do with that? And there aren't a lot of tools quite yet to say, okay, well, all my software now has an SBOM. Go tell me which containers that I have running on Kubernetes are vulnerable to said thing. So, and there's already pretty good solutions for that too, because there's a lot of like after the fact scanners, Qualys scanners and stuff like that. We'll try to find that information. But so I
Interesting.
don't know the use. They're just not as useful right now, I think.
I see.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at Cyclone DX, and that appears to have the ability to compose SBOMs.
Mhm.
So you can be like, hey, I have one component here. Here's the SBOM for this component. Have another component here. There's that SBOM. We're combining it into like another layer, or there's something at the top, and so every part has a bill of materials for everything included in it.
The interesting thing with the components, though, and what's my very novice understanding of WebAssembly, because it abstracts so much, like there's a lot less infrastructure components that would need to be included in the bill of materials, because of the going all the way down into the binary code, because it doesn't really care about the architecture and it's sandboxed. So
Yeah.
all those other things don't factor in to the software bill of materials for components. Is that fair assumption?
I think you're right to a degree, but I think the abstract system is still the same. Where it's sort of like, yeah, in practice there will be fewer a component doesn't have a notion of an operating system, has a notion of syscalls basically, but those can be implemented like anywhere. It's like more virtualized. So we don't ship an entire file system with additional binaries, but you will very likely have or be able to like do composition of things where you're like, well, here's the thing I plucked from somewhere. It's a wholesale precompiled thing that I'm going to link together with something else, and that thing may have its own bill and dependencies, so you're not building it from source.
I wonder, would it be fair to say your only infrastructure dependency from like an operating perspective? So if you look at a container, you've got your base image, so you've got your operating system, and you get your file system, and you get your packages that you put in there.
Yeah.
Those are kind of all your dependencies from an infrastructure standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
For a component, would just the whatever so WASI components and like maybe HTTP and CLI, its real only dependency would be those core components. Or
So
like our libraries. I'm struggling to find the right term for like. Say I built the web clip. Like what is web clippy's infrastructure dependencies?
right. Right now, basically nothing. Right. What we're saying is like, well, we built it with this version of Rust, and we're targeting this version of WASI, but there are no real like dependencies.
Would the runtime then be like WASI time be its only infrastructure
WASM time, yeah.
dependency? Interesting.
But it's not part of the actual component that is further up above, so you never send WASM time to a registry, right? If you
Right.
publish a component as OCI, then that's your thing, and the runtime is part of the platform somewhere. Kind of like Kubernetes isn't part of the platform for containers. What I'm trying to say is like something more complex or something more real is you could definitely see like components being linked together. You and I haven't really explored that far because it's more of an advanced use case. And we're still like, hey, let's get the basics down and let's make sure that we can do this stuff at all. And most people will just have a single code base. But once that flow is like smooth, like right now we're deploying microservices like in containers, right? There are different microservices, and that's kind of like dynamic linking over HTTP. What if you could just do that sort of linking, but not over HTTP, but directly, and you still get the same like isolation guarantees? Seems very useful, and like, but it's possible on paper and people are doing it, but like it's not a good flow, so we haven't gotten there yet. But that would create separate
I can
manifests
see
and
that as a
separate
super
steps.
good use case for the SBOM to show the linking, the
Oh yeah.
relationships of it linking.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. And so my thinking goes like, okay, we've got Rust code or something, or Go code or whatever code, right?
mhm.
And like that pulls in its own dependencies for the programming language, and we want to generate a SBOM for that. And then it would be great if we could stick that into components somehow, where it's like, here's a place to put your SBOM data. And then if you link them together, it like keeps adding to it. And then if we stick it on OCI, or like we wrap it as an OCI artifact or image, I guess is the right word, and push it to the registry, we extract that metadata and put it in the standard place for, you know, um, OCI images, where it's like, here's all the SBOM data for everything contained within. But I don't know if there's a place for that in OCI yet today.
Multiple.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah. There's multiple places. There isn't a standard for the OCI. Different tools do it differently. Like
Oh,
where
okay.
to store the SBOM data is actually a big. Last I looked into it, just like a couple months ago, 3 months
Mhm.
ago, they were trying to iron that out. Like where, yes, we can attach it with ORAS to the artifacts as an image manifest. Essentially, what they did for WebAssembly
Uh-huh.
or with the components, right, and creating an image index for them to be able to store on registry. And so you
Yeah.
just add a field in there.
Okay.
Um, but that makes complete sense to me. But I think it's a huge win from a security standpoint to be like, okay, well, we sign things when we build them,
Mhm.
and we generate the relationships and the dependencies with an SBOM in our metadata. So then it would just be whatever existing tools for OCI, which is update. Like, here's how you handle components, and here's the
Mhm.
data you're looking for, and move it on up.
Okay. So what I'm getting away from this is there, like we would, okay, it's useful both to sign and to include SBOM data,
Mhm.
and those are complementary flows, but not necessarily. We don't need one for the other. We can sign without
Correct.
SBOM, and we can include SBOMs without signing.
Correct. Right.
Um, just great if we do both. I think the easier one, because I'm not a cryptographer, cryptologist, any of that, is if we were to figure out the SBOM path first, because that seems to be what Cargo and like the Rust tooling is figuring out first too, and sort
Wonder.
of work that through components, and then work that back into like, here's how we decide to stick it into OCI, and then we do the signing that again for signing at some later point. Is that plausible?
That Yeah, that's totally possible because you would just be creating kind of like a dependency graph for
Hmm.
the components essentially. The one thing that
Hmm.
I don't have a clear understanding of is the difference between like notation. I'd imagine it's a difference of signing different artifacts. So
Yeah.
notation signs OC like container OCI artifacts. But I'd assume the same type of mechanism would be true for code signing, and I don't know which would be more valuable for components, if it would be signing artifacts or signing code. I don't know if there's a difference. It might be a difference in process, but I don't think the signatures are probably the same cryptographic signatures. But I don't know where code signing stores its stuff and like how it's validated. That's an area where I need to learn more about.
Yeah, I was looking at that. That was going to be my sort of my next question here. Like, what is the difference between cosine and notation? Because like it seems like npm and GitHub are using cosine, and that's Google as well. But then
Are you saying cosine is the product or like code signing?
cosine is in
Okay.
the. Is it a product or is it like an open source thing? I thought there were like two things there.
Cosine. code signing for containers and binaries. I think it's an open source project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know there's yeah, Chain Guard is, I believe, a company that does some of the stuff. That's like a private
They do
thing.
the images. So what they're really good at is what they do is they take really common images and then they apply a lot of like container security best practices to remove the CVEs from them, which is the hard part. So they're doing a lot of the hard work for it. They're doing great. They just raised 130 million, and then had like a 1 billion evaluation their last round of funding. So they're killing it.
Wow.
But yeah, their images are rock solid from a CVE perspective. They're very hardened images.
Okay, cool. Okay.
So we should probably start using those on stream, I think.
I mean, we can.
Security++.
Yeah. And like, so, and well, as far as I could tell, like NPM and GitHub, like their interaction is using cosign.
Okay.
But then I know a lot of the work you've been doing, a lot of the work like on Azure, AKS, that kind of stuff, is using notation and
So they're very similar, and I wonder if it's not the difference between code signing, not cosign the project, but code signing is really just signing the binary.
Okay.
Where notation, so they're essentially the same. They do things differently, but they're doing the same thing. Notation and cosign, you can think of them as kind of competitors.
Okay.
Yeah. And for the most part, they are. So Ratify, the other project, the verifier.
Oh yeah.
That I've been working on. They support both types of signatures. So they do sign the things differently. They have a different envelope so I'm very novice cryptography, but I did read a book on cryptography. So
nice.
I'm getting better. But yeah, the way that they sign and the way that they envelope the signature is different. So if you were to create a tool like Ratify to verify signatures, it's different logic, but they serve the same purpose.
I see. Okay. And so in order to like sign everything, you kind of have to pick one or either, or I guess you have to pick one, and then sign your stuff with that. Are these things like compatible too, where you can like one, like let's say we Cargo were to like implement the NPM model. Maybe this is too advanced, like you don't know, and that's fine. But I'm gonna ask the question.
If I don't know, I'll say
it. Yeah. So say Cargo adopts like NPM's model with GitHub, where it says like, hey, I'll start using cosign, and here's a release thing, and now it's signed, and Cargo displays it. Then we can pull it down, and we get those signatures. But then as we build our image, our component, or anything else, we're like, yeah, we're not going to use cosign. We're going to use this. What was the other scheme?
Notation.
Notation. Yes. Are those interchangeable? Can you compose the signatures somehow?
So what you could do is you could sign. So in this hypothetical scenario, you could use cosign to sign the binary.
Yeah.
And then say, because components can be an OCI artifact, you could sign the component with notation because it's OCI compliant.
Okay.
But those would be two different signatures. And so then when you go to verify on the other end, you would need a tool that supports both. So you can, but you can't. They're not interchangeable because the way that they envelope the signatures and the way that they create them are different. So parsing them and reading them, validating them would be different logic.
Yeah. But because you said that, was it notation? No, Ratify. Sorry, supports both. I was like, like, can it like traverse that tree and figure out like, oh yeah, you signed this part with that, this part with the other thing?
It's just an if statement, and if else, if cosign, if else notation or notation.
Okay.
I mean, that's actually pretty much how the logic is like you define the type. So this was a notation signature. This is a cosign signature. And then they have libraries that handle the parsing of those different signatures because they have different certificate stores and like all that good stuff. So I'm glad all that knowledge isn't wasted in this WebAssembly space, so I can reuse all that knowledge and continue to deepen it. That's been fun. I've been going essentially like creating a KPM, like a key management provider. That's what I've been working on. I should pull some of that stuff into the streams because it's surprisingly very relevant. So what I've been doing is constructing the provider. So like say that Ratify looks out to KPM like Azure Key Vault. currently, and you use that certificate in that store to sign. Notation or ratify needs the ability to go get the public version of that certificate to verify the signature. And so that's what I've been working on. It's all the logic too. Like, how do we store those signature or those certificates inside ratify so we can validate all the signatures?
I see.
But
nice. Okay.
Hopefully that answers it.
Okay. I think so. Yeah. Like for a second, I was very worried that it needs to be like one scheme all the way through, and I was like, oh god, like the space is not agreeing on what to do, and I'm not qualified to like have an opinion. I think, like,
I think
what
it
are
would
people?
be great because the tool. So whatever signature method you use, likely
Yeah.
there's matching tooling on the other end,
Mhm.
and so from a code signing perspective with the component, it would be great to support both modes. You know, if that was built in, because I think. Let me look. Just I think you can pull in cosine and notation as a Go library. I think they're
Nice.
both written in Go.
I assume so.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
both written in Go. So you could pull them in and like, okay, we'll sign this with cosine or sign it with notation.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's lovely because like I can imagine other like vendors if GitHub has this integration for like we can sign things with this handshake using cosign. They may repeat that for like other like language registries. But then, we're like in a cloud native space. It seems like cosign is or notation is a little bit more popular, at least like from what I can tell on our side. So it's like if all of these things compose, that's lovely because then you don't have to choose. And I don't have to learn like what the differences are. I just get to be like, great, okay, they're using that thing. Okay. That's exciting. That's very exciting.
That's a really interesting WebAssembly idea. So would there be a way to create a component that would be able to, so it's the same thing we're doing with the model interface. Could you create some kind of component that would be able to switch out between notation and cosine? Like what if you could define a common interface between the two and it could switch? What is the use case in the WebAssembly and stuff like this? Like I've got two different languages or two different tools of the same language, but I want to maybe I would assume all the cargo stuff's written in Rust. Could you use WebAssembly to leverage existing code that was written in Go?
In theory, yeah. As long as so there will be a fundamental difference, right? If the model of cosine and the model of like notation is too different, then you can't like create a shared abstraction because the it'll be too specific. And it's like putting a bool in your like function call where it's like, okay, we're like taking two separate paths. This should be two separate interfaces. But for sure, like, if they're similar enough, you can create a shared abstraction. Or even if they're different, then we could still leverage the Go compile to WebAssembly, give it a well-known interface, and then just pull that in from Rust code. That's no problem.
Could you indulge me? We're going off topic a little bit here.
Yeah.
So say I was creating.
Actually,
go ahead.
Can I ask you to hold that thought? I really gotta go take a bio break.
Not a problem.
Okay. Don't forget what you were gonna ask.
I'll try not to.
Okay. Yes, you're back.
really want to figure out if I can play Spotify through StreamYard, so I can get some good
We
beats
will
going.
be demonetized everywhere if we do that.
That's fine with me.
Yep.
Okay. So question that I had was, could you, is one of the
Yes.
valid use cases, or maybe this is like, it could be done, but it's probably not what it's recommended to do for WebAssembly. But say I wanted
Right.
to write a CLI in Rust
Uh-huh.
and use the Go packages, right? Like I don't want to rewrite
Yeah.
all the stuff for cosine and notate. Like say I wanted to create a general abstraction for it, where I could have just a sign command,
Yeah.
and then a switch that says, do you want to use cosine or do you want to use notation? And then it would, be able to
Right.
go into the cosine library or the notation library and just pull in and use its functions to sign. Is that a valid like use case for WebAssembly?
I'd say so. Yeah.
So as long as like there's some kind of component version of like how would that work? Like in theory, if you were to, would you just have compile that component of the cosine and notation to WebAssembly components or packages? Components probably is the right
Components. Yeah,
word.
yeah, yeah.
And then I'd be able to pull those components into my Rust program and
Correct.
Okay.
So the stages you go through is so every component has a defined interface in WIT, so the WebAssembly interface types, and that is what is exposed. There's different ways of getting to that. In the past, we had before WIT and everything, we could like cogen it directly from source in Rust. So you'd have your Rust types, you'd add an attribute, and then during compilation, it would like be like, oh, here's the interface we're exporting. We don't really have that today yet. Tooling still
Okay.
needs to fully catch up to that. But so you have to hand roll your interface. But in theory, we could do that for Rust or Go, whatever. And we'd say like, okay, generate the interface. So then you have your interface. Then you compile your code to follow that interface to be like, okay, we're going to expose this thing. And now it is all WebAssembly. It itself, the compiled thing is a component. That's the library you ship around. And on the other side, you can then take that interface and point with BindGen, or there's other tools like it, add it and be like, hey, dear bindings generator, I am using Python or Rust or JavaScript. Please create bindings to this. It'll like auto generate like bindings for that. And then you can call those bindings to call whatever functionality is backing it, which in this case would be the like cosine or notation, like Go code compiled to WebAssembly. So yeah, like in theory, absolutely.
Okay. So as long as the things that you're wanting to consume can be or like have components for them, then you
Yeah,
could do that. You could pull it into any other language that you wanted. Like I could pull it into Rust. So you could pull right into the cargo tool chain for
yeah,
signatures if if a cosine and notation component existed, you could pull it into your tool chain and use it.
yes, yes, indeed.
That would be a fun exercise to do.
There may be limits here. There are certain reasons. It isn't always possible to compile the components yet. The main there's like two limitations. The first one is your language must have tooling to support that compiled into WebAssembly. Go has support for WASI P1, like in the actual like toolchain. WASI P2 is only in TinyGo, not yet Big Go.
Right.
So it may struggle there. And even if that's possible, there's a second like hurdle, which may be relevant here. I don't know. The lack of threads in WASI P2. So if cosine or notation are multi-threaded and they assume multi-threading, it may be that just doesn't work. And they'll need to like CFG and be like, okay, don't use threads if targeting WASI P2.
Okay. I don't, from what I've seen in notation, I don't think that they do. And all of it would be, it's all kind of cryptography based at the CLI level,
Yeah.
especially for those two tool chains. So I think it's probably pretty possible to do to put a component That's
Yeah,
pretty interesting because then they wrote one language library and then can target, and then anybody can use it. I'm
yeah,
I'm starting to see the light here.
yeah.
That's
Because
cool.
I'm sure people like in Python or like Java or
Hmm.
JavaScript, they'd love to use this stuff too, not just Rust. And that definitely makes it easier. Um,
Well, that makes it so much easier to put the signature inside the build tooling.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
like it's part of Cargo, it's part of like the Go tools, it's part of, I
Yep.
don't know what Java is or JavaScript is, but
NPM, Maven,
Maven. Okay, yeah, that would be
Gradle. I don't know. I've never used Java. Yeah.
yeah, that'd be awesome.
Mhm.
But for Rust and Go, there's a good paths there. We'd maybe have to do Tiny Go for it, but as soon as Go gets support for, or Big Go gets support for two preview two.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And they're working on it, I believe. So that's mostly a matter of time.
Okay. Well, then that makes it super easy to be able to support signatures in the toolchain.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what people do is like, okay, we'll go compile down to a CLI tool. So then
Mhm.
go get another CLI tool and
Yeah.
like build your code and then sign it. The tricky thing with signing the container images though is you have to have it in the same workflow and then grab that latest digest. So you make sure that you're getting you know the latest digest, because if anything tinkers with that image between when you built and when you signed, if there's disconnect, you're going to sign the wrong digest and your trust is broken.
It's important then for every layer that you build to include the signature from the previous layer.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you can be like, oh, we're adding this new layer. And, if it includes both signatures, you sign the combination. And then you can like walk through it. And it's always like signed.
Mm-hmm.
Because this digest being signed means like you create a chain of trust. Um, and I think you're right in pointing out that, if we want these signatures to like work everywhere, then what we need to have happen is like integration into like everyone's tooling and not just like one loose or several loose like top end tooling or tools, because like we we need to sign off like every step between like in between for it to like really fully work. I like that. I like that. I like that a lot. I'd like to see that. I think it's fun.
Okay. Well, we made it an hour.
Yes.
We got
I
we got into some good topics.
Yeah. I mean, we can log off now, or I can show you some WASI 021 if you're interested.
Let's go. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Okay. So yesterday, I don't think the blog post has been published yet, but I can sort of walk through it maybe. Let's take a look. Notifications.
While you pull that up, I'll step away for just a minute for my
Yeah,
bio break, and then I'll be right back.
for sure. Hey, everyone. Okay. I think I have everything set up here. I unfortunately do not have Spotify locally, so I can't play any soothing music or anything else fun. But I can talk a lot. Oh, I can also show you CAD again if anyone's interested. Let's take a look. Eee. Which I believe is way more interesting than regular cam, or at least I think so. There's a naughty cat sleeping on my desk again. Here she is. It's the same camera I used to at the beginning of the stream to show off the little keyboards. I called the cat cam, but easy.
I'm back.
Hello. We switched to cat cam while you were gone. Very important. Yeah,
Good.
exactly. It's got to get the content out there. Where it's like I could just talk by myself, or I could show off the cat. Like, who doesn't like that?
Yeah, who doesn't like cats? Some people,
Yes.
evil people. Just
Exactly.
kidding. Let's see here.
Okay, let me share my screen here.
There we go.
So very officially, I've joined the WebAssembly org yesterday.
Hurrah.
Yeah.
See, I need the confetti. That would have been
yeah,
a perfect.
exactly.
Hooray!
Hooray! Yes, we did get a headshot. What?
Did you ever watch Silicon Valley?
No, I still have to watch it.
I'll send you a clip. So there's this. It's called the Bitcoin Alert. Have you heard of this?
No.
Let me just Bitcoin Alert.
Mm-hmm.
Silicon Valley. I'll share it in chat.
Okay.
There it is. Guilfoyle. You've heard of him?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's like gone from. I'll just set the scene. So he's gone for the day, but he has his computer going still.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll put this in chat so everybody can see. And he's into metal music, and so the Bitcoin Alert, like when it goes too low, he like toggles his remote rig or whatever to stop mining Bitcoin. And he goes, you know, like just this like random noise. It's a really funny clip. But I had that as a on my soundboard. I had a big mixer before, and that was one of the noises that I put on there. But anyway, random.
That's really funny. Yeah. Just doing like random drops like all the time.
I had it as my on-call pager notification for a while, but my wife was not a fan of that, so I had to change to the sad trombone.
Mm-hmm.
I did get paid like 14 times, like a 24-hour period, so I think
oh,
it got a little obnoxious.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a lot.
That's what happens when you put SCOM, so System Center Operation Manager, straight to PagerDuty. Not a good idea.
Oh no.
I people on the stream will sympathize with me.
I don't think I've been on call for like nearly a decade, and I'd like to keep it that way.
I've been enjoying my 3 years now on call.
Okay.
On call for Stack was next level for Stack Overflow.
Oh.
Yeah. I would get texts from people like before I got paged, like, "Hey, Stack Overflow's down. What'd you do?" From friends
Lovely.
in the industry. Yeah.
And then you'd be like, "Oh God, I'm about to 3, 2." No. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that sounds rough. How long were you on call for?
I think we had week cycles.
Oh, week cycles. Okay.
Yeah. If I remember right. Yeah. So it wasn't too bad. And the on call, like they had a really good process procedure. They had really good. Like, a lot of the devs that were super knowledgeable. So when the pages came through, they knew like who should be called. So it was a good on call experience. It was just because it was Stack, but it was a little bit unreal. But my favorite one was I was on a call with Nick Craver. And that guy, like, just watching him work was a privilege because he's just like going through code base. Like, how do you understand all the code and then all the infrastructure components before that? Like, I'm supposed to be the one on the call with the AD knowledge here, and you're talking about stuff I've not even heard about. It was just really impressive. I really enjoyed it.
Who is Nick Craver?
He works at Microsoft now, but he was he's really known in the .NET space. So super sharp guy. I think he's a principal software engineer somewhere. I don't know exactly what he's doing at Microsoft now, but he joined shortly after I did. So he was at Stack for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super fun. Yeah. It's always like really fun when you like meet someone and it's like, holy, I'm like learning stuff just like by being in the same room. That's like the best.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the release. No storytelling time. I'll get off my storytelling soapbox.
No. I like it. Like I'm just being sleepy over here, but I really appreciate it. All right. So release. We did one. The blog post is not up yet because I was telling you like I had all sorts of misfortunes happen yesterday. Where midway through the release, I had an emergency I had to like attend to. So we ran a little short. but that's okay because we did get everything shipped, and it's now available as OCI things too. So here's the actual like release under WebAssembly/WASI, tagged 021. You can read our beautiful release notes. There isn't too much in here. But what we did do is we did publish like new packages. So 020 published, well, it was released in February, but the OCI packages just came up 2 months ago. But these are directly part of the release. They're beautifully annotated. Look, we have a little description of like what it does. There's like links to repos and things.
What was the change that you made get pulled into here so it has the description and stuff? Or was that
we
there
use
the
the
okay.
whackage tool with the
Oh,
dash
okay.
annotation flag that we added on stream. Yeah,
Look at that. Getting
I
into the
know.
release notes.
I know.
And a confetti moment, and I don't have the soundboard. So
Yeah. Oh, check it out. There's even a license in here for the actual like. So if you pull this the artifact down, the artifact is now licensed.
excellent.
Yes.
That's important for SBOMs, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Have your license included.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm super happy with this. We did a new release of all the existing like stable. I believe phase 3 is the terminology. WASI interfaces, and yeah, using whackage pull, you can like fetch these down. We don't have a whackage release yet. I think that's like coming maybe today or early next week. So you can actually use the whackage command, WKG. But
And that's the tool, kind of like the WebAssembly component ORAS equivalent. Like, so you can
correct.
like push things up to the registry, pull them down, manipulate them. So
Yeah,
to generate
yeah,
all the OCI metadata for you.
exactly.
Which was, oh man, that feels like ages ago, like 4 or 5 streams ago that we were tinkering with that. I never pushed up my Go version of Whackage. Go
Right,
Whackage.
right.
That's what I should name it. Go Whackage.
Yeah, do it.
But
yeah, so that still needs to be published. Like nobody has run a release, so people just did a local build for like this release. But yeah, it's it's in there. The blog post for this, I've got a PR up. It's been merged. Hold on. Hey. Okay, so there might be a blog post up. Bico Alliance.org news. Let's see. No. Okay, so it's literally been merged 1 minute ago. And the build is still happening. There it is.
That's what live streams is for. Oh, hey.
Yeah. Here we go. Blog post, release post. Yeah. So blog post here explains real quick, like, hey, hello, this is what WebAssembly is. This is what components are, what WASI is, what core WASM is. And then I explain a little bit about the release process. TLDR, we're shipping every 2 months now, on the first Thursday of the month. For the remainder of the year, we're like doing 2 more releases, but it'll continue through the next year until we eventually ship WASI 03. And then hopefully we keep doing something similar for 03. We haven't really talked about that yet. And then a little explainer about @sense gates, what that is. So do you want me to explain this? Is that interesting?
Please do, because I have no idea what it is.
Okay. Yeah, I figured I could just summarize this with like, hey, we're doing releases on Cadence. So people are like, yep, sounds good.
I think so. One thing that I think this could be like a different format for the stream. It's like just going through, because you have so much knowledge in this space where like I can read it, but I'm gonna have to read it like 5 times to understand it, and so I'm not gonna read it. So, so like for a lot of people, and that's probably the same for a lot of people. So like I think there's a lot of value, and like we could do a segment of the stream whenever you write a post like this, like another opportunity to kind of narrate the post, and then you've got an audio segment with it with kind of a deeper explanation, and then I can ask my questions where it doesn't quite make sense to me. So like this is probably a great content type for the stream, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we can do some of that now. If you'd like to.
Feel free.
Yeah. So actually, I think that this is probably, I was really proud of this one. So I gave a talk about WebAssembly for a Rust audience last week Saturday. And I use this framing, and I'm actually wondering how this will like connect with you,
Okay.
because like we've obviously we've been talking a lot, and you already like understand WebAssembly pretty well. But as a primer, like when we talk about core WASM, core WASM is a virtual instruction format for programs to be compiled into, like x86. If I said that to you, does that make sense? Or are you like, oh, I don't really know what x86 is?
I know it's so in my brain, it's lower level than I have ever coded it. So like I
Okay.
understand kind of what it's meaning, but I don't
Yeah.
have any context of like what that would look like. But I
Okay.
do now, because of our previous conversations, I understand what it means. I just don't have a lot of
Okay.
context for it, but it makes
Uh,
sense.
Okay. 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 I wasn't sure. And you're saying like, well, only because we've like talked about this before does it make sense
And
now.
so who's your audience with it? So because that was primarily because like I've been over like infrastructure scripting land and
Yeah.
goes the lowest level I've gone. So like that's even lower on the instruction set, towards
Yeah.
the hardware. So it's probably more my background where there's a knowledge gap. So
Hmm.
I would
I
assume
see.
your audience is probably going to be a little bit more familiar with those coding formats, maybe.
I don't know.
Okay, well then
It's
I'm a good guinea pig.
yeah, exactly. So because the audience is like programmers in general, which includes people from JavaScript, from people who are like more into ops or scripting, but also Rust programmers or other like Go programmers, low level things. It's so broad that's kind of like hard to explain. Like WebAssembly is weird because it's like a low level technology in a way, but it enables high level things, and so we want to talk about the high level things, but then we use low level terminology. And I was like, I don't know
Well,
how to like fully
here's
explain
the
it.
two phrases where I get stuck. Um,
Yeah.
where I vaguely understand what it is. So instruction format.
Uh huh.
So like right there, if I were to read that one sentence, core WASM is a virtual instruction format for programs to be compiled into, and then so
Yes.
think x86 and 64. So like my first question is like, what's an instruction format? And
Hmm.
then compiled into. Um, does that mean compiled to? Like that would be, is that
Yeah.
synonymous with that?
Yep.
So I would just maybe say compile too, because into makes me think that it needs to go into something else.
Okay. Yep.
And that's more like the writing editor part of my
Hmm.
background. And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
but then the think x86 64 is a little bit more helpful because it gives more context to it. But my biggest gap is like, okay, well, what exactly is an instruction format?
Yeah. Uh, I'm guessing a link to Wikipedia would be very helpful here.
Yeah, that would be the first thing I do is like instruction format or content.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. No, that's a great shout. And into was like, I wasn't sure if it was like to or into, and like in Rust, when you take a thing and you convert it into another, it's into. So I was
Oh,
like,
okay.
oh, probably into, but you're like, but in English, I'm like, oh, okay. we're not writing Rust here, we're writing English.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because two and because then it becomes a thing because you're going to put it, to something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So then the second one is, maybe I'll patch it like after stream, where I'll like add a
Not
little
a
link
problem.
where it's like,
I can still understand it. That would just be increased
yeah.
clarity.
And maybe if I say x86 64 assembly would be helpful, because then people are like, ah,
Yes.
that's the thing. Instructions are like assembly, and then like we link, and then that's clear. Okay. So WebAssembly components are a container format and type system that wrap the core WASM instructions into typed hermetic binaries and libraries. Does that check out?
Everything, the hermetic binaries, I don't know what that is.
Okay. It's maybe a little bit of a buzzword.
Okay.
Like people have been using it to like describe things, and I like it, but it's also, I realize it's like it's a bit of a buzzword. But hermetic means it's like hermetically sealed or without external dependencies.
Okay.
You oftentimes hear it for hermetic build systems, which are build systems that are self-contained. And then if you want to spread them out, for example, you can put them on multiple machines, and get them to build different parts because they're self-contained. So it makes it easier to move around or to create, for example, reproducible builds, which you need for validation of your artifacts, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
Because non-hermetic build systems have this problem. It's like it's hard to reproduce the build. Like we signed it, someone wants to check it, you can't check it because it's non-deterministic. Or there's
What's
like,
go ahead. Go ahead.
or there are like random system dependencies that like sort of vary or like have timestamps in the thing, and it just makes it difficult. Go ahead.
Okay, so more self-contained is like that's if I were to translate.
Yeah, yeah. Self-contained is a good way of saying it.
Okay. And then, so like, what's the context for container format? Because my mind immediately jumps to like OCI container formats, but I assume that it's meaning a little bit different.
Yeah. So a container format, like in a general sense, is like
from a data structure perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's right to say. For example, video codecs, they have the actual encoding, and then they have, for example, .mkv is the container for that, or .mp4. And you can have different like encodings within, but the container, the shape of it around it is different.
Gotcha.
Like with HTTP, you have HTTP as a protocol you could think of as a container for example, JSON or XML or any other like structure within, but it has metadata in a specific way, and then the content may like differ.
What really helped me understand it though was the next little bit, which is that wrap core WASM instructions into typed. So like that WIT definition. That actually helped quite. That brought a lot of clarity to it for me.
Okay, I'm glad. That's good. And the final bit is WASI is a reserved namespace for a collection of standardized WASM component interfaces. Kind of like POSIX, if you like, on Linux and macOS, they share some things, and that's the POSIX standard. It's kind of the same thing where it's just header files, it's just interfaces, but they are standardized.
That one made complete sense to me.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna give this section hopefully a good enough for people who are like, okay, what is this stuff? Okay, I kind of see. Okay, great. Now we can keep reading.
Maybe we can move the live streams to like right before you publish, and we'll just do a edit pass.
I'll
Let's
just
see if Josh understands.
I might just like start tagging you in these things. Like it'll be helpful.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I can definitely help.
Yes. So already talked a little bit about this, but like we're releasing every 2 months. It took some effort. It took us 5 years to go from 0.1 to 0.2, and it took us 6 months to go from 0.2 to 0.2.1. And now
progress.
Every 2 months after that. Yeah.
That's a good connect bullet. Find that rate of improvement and
yeah. Oh, yeah. For people on stream who are like, what's a connect? It's like, that's our internal Microsoft review. Yeah, exactly. I might do that. That's a good idea. Okay, so adopting the @synscape notation in WIT. That's one of the main features. So the fact that we're shipping at all, that took so much effort and most of the time. But like the concrete like thing that we're shipping, the actual like change, it's like a whole slew of like doc changes. The last 6 months of like copy edits and all that stuff. But we're making use of one new feature, which is the @synscape notation. So in WASI 02, interfaces look like this, where it's just like, hey, the name of the interface, some functions have return types, and then the host implements it, the guest toolchain, so the language like targets it and says, hey, I'd like to call this, and that just works. But then here in 021 is we are now annotating them and describing when they were introduced. So all of these interfaces landed in 02.0. All documents, all WIT documents are always like versioned. So we know what version this thing is itself. We know what version these interfaces were added in. And then they'll be useful because as we upgrade things, we can now know like, oh, I'm using this version or I'm targeting API from that version. and maybe there's like mismatches, or it helps sort of track these things. And importantly, also, we have made mistakes in our interfaces. We know we have, but we can't make breaking changes until the next until 0.3. So what we want to do is we want to like add a new, or we have a new notation that we're not yet using called at deprecated, that allows us to be like, hey, this actually don't use this API. Please actually go and use
That it
this
works
other
for
one.
now, but don't use it, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
We're not going to break you, and everyone should implement this. But yes, please stop using it. And then once the breaking changes happen, we'll likely like remove all the deprecated and just use the new ones.
Is there
But
a
that,
random question? Is there an
yeah.
LSP for WebAssembly?
Ooh, for wit, there is. So for the
Okay.
interface types, there is. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Just
if you're,
just random thought. I was just curious.
oh yeah. I don't believe we've added support for the gate notation yet, and we should. Someone should. Because when you asked the question, I was like, because there's a WebAssembly text format, .wat, and that's like a Lisp-like notation. So for a second, I wasn't sure if you meant like the types or the instruction format as like Lisp, but it's like it's the former. Yeah. There is. Anyway, that's roughly what this part of the post says, which I hope makes sense.
It makes total sense to be able to define the versions of it. So really, what version of WebAssembly that these came from? So like this whole package here is from 0.2.1, but this particular interface was introduced in 0.2.0.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, makes total sense.
And then, at some point we'll be adding new interfaces, and I'll be like, hey, this was added 0.2.2. And then you can, for example, in your toolchain be like, okay, we're not yet going to compile for that because no platform supports it. But then at some point platforms say, hey, I support it. And then you know which APIs are part of it, just like by reading the actual like interfaces.
So this, to kind of chain this back and link it up to the previous one, the random is inside the WASI, the reserved namespace.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
To then export functionality from, is it like the core WASM? Am I using the right terms there?
To export functionality. I don't know what you're trying to say.
So if you go up to, let's see here.
This here?
Yeah, that first. So core WASM.
Yes.
This WASI creates, so that get random is now added to the namespace that is the collection standard for WASM. So does that now become part of core WASM?
So
like how is core WASM and WASI linked?
Are you familiar with header files in C at all? Okay. Interfaces in Go.
Yes.
Yes. So you can think of WASM components as Go interfaces.
Okay.
And occasionally also an implementation of a Go interface. So there's the abstract interface, and then there's someone's implemented that interface. So,
And that's what WASI is.
That is what WASM components are. They are.
Okay.
Yeah. You can think of WASI as the Go standard library, which has.
Okay, let's bring it back now. Like what we were creating, that would be going into the.
Exactly.
It's an interface. Okay, well, the standard library, because then we would import that in and be able to use it like we would, like the syscall one, like that actually wraps libc. Okay.
Exactly. And then
that's good. Yeah, keep going.
And then core WASM is just like the function bodies, where if you have like a snippet of Go code that says like, hey, I'm opening a file and I'm doing some stuff on it, right? By itself, that's just commands. That's just instructions. It's only once you add it to an implementation, you stick it inside of a function or inside of an implementation of an interface, that you know what you're like doing with it, and you can invoke it and call it. But we can write pseudo Go and like just show the commands and instructions, but they don't do anything because it has to like have an interface around it. So very abstractly, it's a difference between like instructions and like typed interfaces that you can invoke. Components are those typed interfaces. Otherwise, you just have the instructions.
Go a little, like double click a little bit more into the instruction for the core WASM.
Yes.
So I get I understand that the components give you the type, kind of like the type definitions and all that good stuff. And then like the WASI would be kind of like a standard package that you could import that's kind of fine-tuned around that. So then the core WASM is, yeah, I'm just a little fuzzy on that. Can you repeat that a little bit or dive a little bit deeper into the core WASM, like how it relates to the other two and then its purpose? See if I can rock it.
So in programming languages, you typically separate two things. So I'm going a little abstract, but maybe it'll make more sense.
Okay.
You have the type system part, which is the abstract like interfaces and whatnot. And then you have operational semantics, which is effectively function bodies.
Okay,
right?
so like func and then whatever the value receiver and then inside the curly brace that you're talking about, that section?
Whatever's inside of the curly braces
Uh-huh.
are what we, that is subject to operational semantics. That is the function body. Those are the instructions, the
Gotcha.
sequence of things we're executing. The function signature itself and all that stuff around that, the return type, all that stuff, that is part of the type signature, part of the type system. Core WASM describes when we compile the stuff, like what the function body should compile into.
Translating into the binary format, all the instruction sets.
Yeah. So very simple function add that takes an integer and another integer in the signature. It says A integer, B integer, and then it says we're going to return another integer, right? So A and B, and then inside the body, it will be like A plus B, and then we return the result. Simple add function, the simplest add function in the world, right? Take two arguments. All
that inside the function block is like that's the core WASM doing.
Yeah, exactly. So A plus B compiles to instructions, which is core WASM. The signature, we take A and we take B and we return another integer. That is part of the type system. You would express that in components.
Okay, and then if you needed to pull it, like say I wanted to use get random in there, that would be WASI, right? It's a package being pulled in, and I would use that inside the instruction. And then that is a powerful analogy, right there, the programming language analogy. Like you should keep that in your pocket for some storytelling.
Yeah, it's helpful for me too because I'm like, oh, how do I explain this? And it's like, no, it's good.
No, that's super good at the high level because then it gives you avenues to dive further into it. Like, well, how does core WASM work? Like, how did it figure out? The instructions and stuff like that. That's good. That's good.
Okay,
we're gonna leave it at that. That was fantastic analogy.
Okay, I'm glad it clicked. Because we are targeting all programmers with this, like operators, implementers, low-level languages, high-level languages, and we're trying to be like, okay, how do we explain this stuff? Because it's like, here's the thing, everyone can use it, and it's like,
well, that was actually a tricky part for me getting into the space. What mental models do I use? And so like you just a really big aha moment to understand it with the programming language analogy, like break down the language itself and what these things mean. Because I kept trying to overlay like, oh, well, maybe it's similar to containers because it does this, but then I'm like, all these mental models just aren't overlaying properly. Like in some of our earlier conversations, like, does that mean like this in OCI? We're like, well, no. It kind of, so fantastic.
I'm glad. It's because WASI, WebAssembly, components, all that stuff, it's like, it's not perfect. It does some things very differently from the way we do computing today, using like our operating systems and binaries and all the libraries and system dependencies, containers, etc. What we're trying to do is like make sure that we target the analogous workflows by and large to the point that people understand and they're like, oh, I can just use it this way. And that is from that point, we want to use as a jump it, like a springboard to like show, okay, you're on board with us now. Great. Now let me show you some really cool stuff. And that's when we are like component composition, like, oh, did you know it's like sandbox by default? Okay, great. We're going to like strip away the entire operating system and like virtualize everything. And it's like, what is going on? And it's like, oh, that's so cool, But first we have to like get to that, bring people
But yeah,
along
like
for
how
that
do
first
I
bit.
how do I understand, how do I use it? Basically, what the biggest first hurdle is getting people to see how they could use it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Remember when containers first came out and everyone was like, oh yeah, they're like lightweight VMs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're kind of doing the same thing here where it's like, oh yeah, they're like lightweight containers
Yeah,
ish.
yeah, ish. Yeah,
Yeah.
but then the interesting part is it doesn't quite the containers. They were closer to the infrastructure. Where like now you're like, well, what if it really didn't exist? What if
Hmm.
you really didn't need to care about all those different facets of the infrastructure?
Yes.
So then when you do that, now I understand why it's more closely related to a language, like a programming language,
Yeah.
versus the infrastructure component, because it really doesn't exist.
Hmm.
You know,
Exactly.
because now you're talking about memory sectors. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh well, okay, no, where's my operating system at Methamol? It's not working out here.
I Matt Butcher from Fermion like has a co-creator of Helm, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, sweet. I didn't know
Uh,
that.
yeah, it was like, yeah, what are his like credentials? He's like, oh yeah, co-create Helm. He's like all into like components now and like WebAssembly, and he has like a company that like doing specifically that. But the analogy he uses, I might be wrong. Please do fact check me.
Sure.
But the analogy he uses is like this is like third wave cloud computing, where first we had VMs, then we went to containers, and now components. He doesn't call them that. He says cloud or like cloud native binaries. I think the idea of like, yeah, we are just producing binaries is a really good one because it's mostly accurate. Because like components are just, or sorry, containers. Nobody wants to run a container. We just have to run containers. Ideally, we would just have the program, and that's what we'd run. But you can't just do that. So we need to like have stuff around that. But now we get to strip it away, and it's like, no. It's truly just the binary that you ship around.
Yeah, I've seen. I need to watch some more of his stuff. I'm really interested in what was the book that Steve recommended me. He was talking about how like how it could revolutionize serverless, because that in theory
Oh.
serverless does the same. It's supposed to give you the same thing, right? But there's just too many limitations running in a container, like running in a VM behind the
Mm,
scenes, that it's not truly serverless. There's always a server somewhere, but with this it
right.
could be, and how much more efficient it would be to run in WebAssembly. um, I'll try to find that book and bring it back to the stream, because it's really interesting
Yeah, that would be cool. I
from
know
a financial
so
perspective, like cost and complexity. But
yeah, for sure. Because like I know we should be able to like, get down to like 1 millisecond boot times for like, or we have this working single millisecond boot times for like WebAssembly components in like full VM slices. We can get to like microseconds if you just use WASM time. But yeah, compare that to like traditional VMs or even like really fast ones, like
mhm.
Firecracker, I believe, is like 125. That's like 100x like speed, like performance improvement.
Yeah, and like what percent of VMs are actually running that? Though they're mostly
Yeah, exactly.
minute. We're talking minute boot up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that like it really changes like the way you can like you don't have to keep stuff idling is really interesting. Or like scaling up if it's instant.
Oh, burst would
Yeah.
be interesting.
Uh-huh.
How do you handle that on the
Exactly.
orchestration side? That's where my mind goes.
Oh yeah.
But I suppose that's where Hyperlight comes in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like
Interesting.
once you have like these super lightweight binaries that don't need the full like infrastructure around it, you're like, okay, let's put it on Kubernetes. And then suddenly you're like, oh, wait, hold on. There's real limits to what Kubernetes can handle because it assumes maybe hundreds of like, containers, not hundreds of thousands or something,
It's interesting to be able to break the orchestration scaling of Kubernetes, though, because that was like its whole thing.
It also assumes some amount of longevity. Like burst means it's up for minutes,
hours,
at a minimum.
days. Like it's Black Friday.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
But here you could spin something up in under a millisecond or quicker.
Imagine the cost savings if your burst was like in real time.
Yeah. Well, we've seen some of this with Zeiss, right? And they were able to save 60% of their compute cost on the first version.
Imagine like Netflix or something like that. Like their demand is so random.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'm not saying they could, but just like a service like that has such fluctuation in demand. Or retail, really,
Oh, yeah, 100%.
There might be a sale, that's hard. It's really hard to burst like that,
Yes.
unless it's a Black Friday, like a really consistent for tier. But then there's so much waste at like maybe 2 a.m. In the U.S., like all your regions that are U.S. 2 a.m. But you're going to keep it online anyway for the next 40 hours because the sale doesn't until Monday. What's that bill of your scaled up instance?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. No, I definitely think so. There's so many things to that too, where it's like once your boot times are so quick, you may need less beefy machines. So you can like put it on the edge too. And so, like once you put it on the edge, your latency becomes better, and that can like have other like benefits. I don't know. There's so much stuff there. But yeah.
Interesting. Cool. We got it. Oh, so we got some OCI.
Yes.
Familiar territory.
Yeah. So it's just a little notice that, we are now publishing things as OCI. It's mostly like what I showed already here, with all of these interfaces are now being published. They've got their, did we not stick a license on this? Oh, no, we did. Here, look, a little license there, little repo, all that stuff.
We need a note to self. We need some better production for our streams, because we should have some clips for when we were walking through publishing this, because for people that are curious, like going through Whackage, and you added the annotation thing, and what are the commands? What's it look like getting it up there? We were able to push some components ourselves that we wrote, the web clip we put up there.
Yes.
So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
It worked on our machines as well, with a little bit of struggle, but we got it.
We've definitely had this tooling working on at least 3 computers.
Yeah,
it's very promising.
Yeah, just not WSL yet.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that last little bit of the release post is just explaining like what OCI is, the fact that we have it on there. If people are like interested in this, how to get involved. Hopefully for the next release, we may have better integration with tooling. So Car Component is currently in the works of landing native tooling on the specification side. I'm trying to make sure that we have a WebAssembly native way of encoding the information. So your actual WebAssembly binary, for example, would include like, hey, I am this license. And then Whackage can just read the data out of the component, or whatever the publishing tool is, read the data out of the component and use that in order to publish it, rather than like needing to read cargo TOML and directly go through it. You just go through the component and all the shared like things like share it, and making all of this standard and making it part of the flows by default, I think will be really good. And yeah, this is the first step in going there. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, getting the artifacts out there is good. Solid stuff.
Yes.
Got a specification now. So it's all good.
Exactly.
Sweet. There's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yeah.
This is helpful for me.
I'm glad. First release, so the notes are like not like, oh, check out all these cool APIs, but more like, we've shipped a process. We're including some new features that have been rolled out, and more releases soon.
Well, I love the tidbits diving into it more, because there isn't a lot of great literature right now just to understand the technology.
Yes.
So like these little tidbits are super helpful. And having you go through it and ask questions was even more helpful for me.
I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah, we should. It's so hard to like frame things because like when you're in the neck of it, you're like, oh my god, here's like system problems and we can solve it through this technical solution here. And then you like emerge with like, okay, we have it, the perfect solution. And people ask like, okay, what's better? And you're like, it's better. You gotta explain it
Mhm.
all, but especially like in terms that other people can understand because they're over there like using their current things and like, why is this useful? How does it help them solve problems? Like
Right.
navigating that is so tricky and we're trying. So
Well, I think
thank
we've
you.
touched on it even on the stream. Like
Yeah.
imagine being able to scale like real time bursting.
Yes. Yeah. It's also like not stuff that's like, oh, in the future, in the far future, we may be able to like, selling vaporware. I was like, no, we've done this for actual like clients. They have it in
Mhm.
production. We have the numbers back. What we're now trying to do is like get the user experience smooth enough that
If we
everyone
can
could do
if
it.
we can get the user experience closer to like what Docker did,
Oh
where
yeah.
it's like Docker build, run, you know, kind of thing, like that would be sweet. It's different because it's more of a programming language. So if you can just document like that particular process, it's not going to be as simple. Um, but I think we're
Yes.
getting there. I think we're getting
We
there.
are, definitely. So I see a question in chat, which is a really
Oh,
good question. Can I run Blazor WebAssembly on an AKS cluster with these new features? Do you know what Blazor is?
I know of Blazor.
Of Blazor. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So for people who like don't know, Blazor is a .NET framework. I think would be a right way of putting it to take like build for UI development. So you can like build your user interfaces using WebAssembly, like using C# and compile down to WebAssembly and run things through there. My understanding is that Blazor currently doesn't target WASI. I believe it targets just bare WebAssembly, so just the instruction format, core WASM, and it creates its own bindings out. Um, at least that's the case today. Um, so right now, if you compile this down, it won't work. I don't know if it has a server component to it. I imagine probably does in some way, but if you try and do this today, it won't work. But I do know that the .NET team is working on adding. I believe they have WASI Preview 1 support in the toolchain. So I don't know if Blazor has support for that yet, but .NET definitely does. And they are in the works of adding Preview 2 support. And once that lands and Blazor upstreams it, then the answer will be yes. And .NET itself adding support for Preview 2 should be sooner. Blazor adding support for that, I can't tell. I don't know what the project schedule for that is. So not yet, but I can see it working at
Hopefully
some point.
soon. Good
Yep.
question. Good question.
Hopefully.
The running on the AKS cluster will. So coming up streams, we'll be talking about SpinCube, and
Yes.
that would be a way that you can deploy WebAssembly on an AKS cluster. One of the ways. Probably preferred path at this point, but we'll get there. So deploying to AKS, yes, but looks like Blazor just doesn't yet support that as a compilation target. Am I using that correctly?
Correct. Yeah.
Excellent.
And even if .NET had support for it sooner, it's no guarantee that Blazor will want to follow or will follow. That may take time.
Until we have convinced the world.
Exactly.
What's that TV show with like the genius mouse and then was it Prince?
Pinky in the Brain?
Pinky in the Brain, yes.
Hey. Oh yeah, they ended every episode with like a slogan, right? Or like some sort of catchphrase.
Yes. Should we adopt that catchphrase? I did find a good meme for when I go into story mode that we can put on screen.
Oh yeah.
Called
Stay a while and listen. Yeah, that's right.
Sigurd
Yeah.
Kane from Diablo franchise.
Yeah.
Yep. Stay a while and listen.
Yes.
So we could put that up every time. I just go riff on one of my random story modes.
I feel like you and I alternate like between story modes
Yeah.
pretty consistently. Yeah. All right.
It's a side effect of the rule. I think you got to tell a story.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
I mean, to be fair, it is my favorite part of like our streams. I get to be like, oh, sweet, another story.
Look at this
like,
new thing. Yes,
yeah.
yes, story time. Well, it makes things fun, you know.
Yeah,
Man, we're almost at 2 hours. 1 hour 45
Yes.
minutes. Might be our longest one yet. It's good stuff.
I think so. Yeah, it is good stuff. Yay. Renal says thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.
And thanks for the question.
For anyone else who has like any questions, like please feel free to just like freely ask. That's what we're here for.
Yes, absolutely.
We don't know the answer, we'll say so.
If we don't know the answer, Josh will know someone who does know the
answer. Or you'll know the answer.
Yeah, some of them.
I'm just a lowly programmer. You like worked in infra for like years and years.
I'm trying to learn the programming ways.
Yes. And that's
making progress.
why we get along. Yes.
Common ground. Well, shoot, yes. I don't have anything else. Let's see here. What else? Yeah, so I think we're going to dive back into the code, building the interface for Olama, and then switch out to. Yeah, so we'll pick that back up. I'm not sure where we left off, but for next week, we might change the schedule a little bit, but I'll reach back out to you to confirm. So it might be Monday, Tuesday, or Monday, Wednesday, so there's less context switch and then easier to pick up. But yeah, we can iron out the details later. But
yeah, for sure.
This is a great session.
Definitely Monday.
Yes, definitely Monday. Definitely Monday.
Yes.
So keep an eye on the AKS channel. That will be where you can get a head announcement. We're both on our individual Twitches, so if you prefer to be on there, I've got my schedule, so you can look at that to see when we are going to be up next. For everybody watching and wanting to tune in again for some coding on Monday. So we'll kind of leave it there, and we'll carry on with the rest of our day and enjoy a weekend. Hopefully a seemingly long weekend, but it probably won't be that long. So. At least it's a break.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
I'm going to click end stream. Here we go. Otherwise, we'll keep rambling. All right. See you next time, everybody.
Bye.